We've all slipped on the snow or ice in the winter and tripped over a loose piece of carpet or our kids' toys and not thought much about it. But on the job, slips, trips, and falls can be serious problems. In fact, they're involved in most of the accidents that occur on job sites every day. They cause 17% of disabling occupational injuries and 15% of on-the-job fatalities. And you don't have to fall a long way to hurt yourself. Just slipping on a wet floor or tripping over an open file drawer can result in a fall that lands you in the hospital with a broken bone, strained back, concussion, or worse. But slips, trips, and falls can be prevented. In this program, we'll discuss the mechanics of slips, trips, and falls, the types of hazards that you're likely to encounter that lead to them, and the safe practices and equipment you can use to stay safely on your feet. To avoid slips, trips, and falls and the injuries that they can cause, it helps to understand just how we're able to stand and walk upright in the first place. To start, we need to know something about our center of gravity. A person's center of gravity is the point where the weight of the body is equally distributed, half above and half below, and it plays an important part in every movement that we make. Imagine that you're standing up straight. Now draw a triangle, with your feet forming the 2 points at the base and the third point of the triangle at your lower back. This upper point is located roughly where your center of gravity is. As you move, these 3 points constantly change position. If the upper point extends out past the lower points, you can lose your balance, and unless you regain it, you will fall. Because the shape and size of your body has a direct impact on how naturally stable you are, it's easier for some people to keep their balance than for others. For example, a short person will have a lower center of gravity and be more stable than a tall person. It simply takes less of a push for the taller person's center of gravity to extend out past their feet so they fall over. How you stand also affects your stability. You're in your most stable standing position when you're perfectly upright with your arms at your sides. This keeps your center of gravity low, at about the lower part of your spine and over your feet. On the other hand, if you're slouching or hunching your shoulders, your center of gravity can extend out past your feet, making you less stable. Reaching forward or sideways for something can have the same effect. When you reach over your head, you raise your center of gravity, which also reduces your stability. And the weight of anything that you're holding makes you even more unstable. How you carry something can affect your stability as well. Putting a load on your shoulder not only raises your center of gravity, it throws it dangerously off to the side. On the other hand, you can increase your stability by carrying objects close to your body as low as you can, while still keeping your back straight. We tend to take walking for granted, but it's actually a pretty risky activity because it requires us to fall and catch ourselves with every step. And while we're doing that, there is a lot of opportunity for us to slip or trip along the way. To better understand why we might trip or slip, it helps to know something about momentum. Momentum is the force that we build up as we move in any direction. It tends to keep our body and its center of gravity going in the same direction. But if we encounter something that interferes with our progress, such as an object or a slick surface, it can cause trouble. Trips generally occur when our foot or lower leg catches on something. This causes our lower body to stop while our momentum keeps our center of gravity moving, so that we lose our balance. Stepping onto a lower level, such as when we're going downstairs, can also cause us to trip, especially if the surface is uneven or damaged. Slips are a little different. When we walk, we want to have the best grip, that is, the most friction between our shoes and the walking surface. Slipping occurs when something interferes with that grip and causes our feet to move out from under our center of gravity, while our momentum keeps us moving. This causes us to lose our balance, which, like tripping, can also result in a fall. It's important to remember that our momentum increases when we walk faster and when we carry more weight, things that we're very likely to be doing when we're on the job. So the faster we go and the more that we carry, the more attention we need to pay to potential slip and trip hazards. In addition to slips and trips, you need to watch out for fall hazards during a busy workday as well. If you don't, it can lead to pain, injuries, or even worse. For example, if you need to reach something up high, stacking up some pallets and standing on them may seem like a time saver, until the pallets shift out from under you. You should probably use a ladder instead, but be sure to keep your center of gravity positioned between the two upright rails, because losing your balance up there could get you to the ground a lot faster and more painfully than you want. When you are using a ladder, you should also be sure to follow the 3-point rule. Keep one hand and 2 feet, or 2 hands and a foot in contact with the ladder at all times. And remember, you don't have to be up high for a fall to cause a serious injury. So you need to be careful when you are off the ground at any height. Different walking surfaces provide varying degrees of the friction that is needed by your feet to get a secure grip. For instance, a rubber mat provides a better grip than smooth concrete, and wood flooring provides a better grip when it's dry than when it's wet. You can avoid slipping by being aware of the type of surface that you're walking on and how much traction it typically provides. The walking surfaces you encounter can be divided into 3 types: non-slip, moderately slippery, and slippery. Non-slip surfaces provide good traction regardless of whether they are wet or dry. They include rubber mats, carpet, surfaces covered with non-slip coatings, and rough textured concrete. Moderately slippery surfaces are reasonably slip resistant when they're dry, but can be very slippery when they're wet. These include grassy ground, unpolished ceramic tile, unfinished wood, and smooth concrete. Slippery surfaces don't provide much traction at all, whether they're wet or dry. They include muddy ground, polished marble and tile, smooth metal, freshly painted concrete, and of course, ice. Whether you're working indoors or outside, the most slippery surfaces tend to be those that are wet. Even moderately slippery walking surfaces such as grass, tile, or painted concrete can present serious slip and fall hazards if a liquid gets on them. This situation can become even more hazardous in cold weather, when ice can turn almost any surface into a skating rink. If possible, areas such as these should be covered with non-slip materials, such as rubber mats, gravel, or sand. Surfaces also become more slippery when they are covered with substances such as sawdust, metal shavings, or loose earth. Accumulations of mud, oil, or grease have the same effect. And whether you're working inside or outside, you need to watch your step on ladders and stairways, as well as ramps and other sloping surfaces. Your likelihood of slipping increases significantly when a surface isn't level. The messier a job site becomes, the more slip, trip, and fall hazards you're likely to encounter. But following good housekeeping and maintenance practices can prevent these incidents, as well as the injuries they cause in these environments. For example, you have to be able to see hazards to avoid them, so making sure that lighting equipment is fully functional and that it provides enough illumination can help you or a coworker avoid a slip, trip, or fall. Keep all walking surfaces dry. If you discover a spill, use rags, paper towels, or a mop to clean it up. For substances like grease or oil that have accumulated on the floor, spread an absorbent material like vermiculite or kitty litter over the area. Then sweep everything up and dispose of it properly. Sometimes you may need to place a non-skid rubber mat or a piece of carpeting over a slippery spot. If you do, make sure that it lies flat and stays in place so people won't trip over it. There are lots of other slip, trip, and fall hazards you can encounter on a job site too. Walkways and other high-traffic areas should be kept clear of materials, tools, and other objects that could cause trips. Remember to pick up small items off any hard floor as well. Stepping on a loose nail or washer could send somebody skating when they least expect it. Inspect ramps and stairways and clear them of debris and other obstacles. Check that handrails are firmly attached and use them whenever possible, just in case. Wet, rough, and uneven ground with roots sticking out and loose or damaged flooring with protruding nails can cause slips and trips as well. If you discover problems like these, block them off from foot traffic so people won't trip over them. Then report the hazards to your supervisor so they can be addressed as soon as possible. Don't let discarded packing materials, debris, or other clutter accumulate in your work area either. Pick it up and dispose of it properly so people who pass by later won't trip over it. When you're using powered tools and equipment, don't just lay power cords or hoses across high-traffic areas and walkways. That creates a serious trip hazard. Instead, tape them down or cover them with a mat and remove them as soon as you're finished. While it's important to reduce or eliminate any slip, trip, and fall hazards that exist on a job site, it's always a good idea to wear shoes that will help protect you from them as well. They should fit properly, be comfortable, and have soles and heels that are suited for the surfaces that you will be walking and standing on. The heels of your shoes are especially important. Most slips occur when there is not enough friction between your heels and the walking surface beneath them. To get a secure grip, the heels on your shoes should be low and wide. Many work boots have soles made out of hard rubber. These soles don't create particularly good friction on dry surfaces, but have good traction in areas that are wet or greasy. Raised patterns or texturing on a shoe sole called tread can greatly increase their slip resistance as well. Some work shoes and most work boots have especially deep treads. This improves their grip and channels away water or other liquids that could reduce the friction they have with a walking surface. But an embedded pebble, nail, or staple can turn even a slip-resistant shoe into a skate. So inspect the treads and remove any foreign objects that you find. Even when we do our best to avoid them, slips, trips, and falls can still occur. They happen quickly and without warning, so it's important to know ahead of time what you can do to avoid an injury or lessen its severity, and how to treat any injuries that might result. What you do with your body when you fall can make a big difference in how much of an injury, if any, could occur. The important thing to remember is to stay loose. Relax, don't tense up. Bend at your elbows and knees. Allow your muscles to absorb the impact gradually and roll in the direction of the fall. Do not try to break a fall with your hands. If you land with all of your body weight on a hand, you could seriously sprain your wrist or even break some bones. If a coworker is hurt in a fall, there are some first aid guidelines you should follow. For minor injuries, you can clean visible wounds with water. Stop any bleeding by applying pressure with a sterile dressing or a clean cloth, and use ice wrapped in a cloth or towel to reduce pain and swelling. You should call 911 immediately if the victim is unconscious, unable to move, or has difficulty breathing. The injury bleeds heavily, or there is bleeding from the nose, ears, or mouth. Or you think their head, neck, back, or hip may have been affected. In some cases, the EMT dispatcher may be able to assist you with basic first aid instructions. Finally, you should comfort the injured person and stay with them until they have recovered or emergency assistance arrives. As we've seen, slips, trips, and falls can occur all too frequently on a job site. But by understanding the hazards that lead to them and knowing how to avoid them, you can keep yourself on your feet and injury-free. Let's review. When standing, walking, and working, you can increase your stability by keeping your center of gravity low. Pay attention to the surfaces you walk on and avoid slip and trip hazards. Clean up unused materials and debris immediately. Keep walkways, stairs, and ramps free of clutter and other obstacles. Wear shoes or boots that will give your feet the most secure grip for the conditions that you are working in. If you do fall, remember to relax and roll with it. By staying on your toes, you can help to reduce or eliminate any slip, trip, and fall hazards in your workplace and avoid the injuries that they can cause, so you can go home safe at the end of every day.